Yeah, I'm sitting with Gary Gold. He's the assistant coach of the Springbok rugby team. And Gary and I define strategy as understanding where you are and getting a clear picture of where you're going to get to and working out then how you're going to get there. So we're going to talk a little bit about your strategies and how you've got to where you got to today. And just to kick off, I'm interested to know when you first decided that you were going to become a rugby coach.
Yeah, thanks Dale. Thanks for inviting me to Incredible Strategies. I first decided to become a rugby coach when I was still playing really. I got an injury in 1997 and was asked by a local club to help out with one of the lower teams. And in going down on a Tuesday and a Thursday evening, I realized that this is really something that I can call my passion and something that I thoroughly enjoyed. I enjoyed the thinking or the chess side of rugby, to be able to strategize and make plans and do the organisation of the sessions, etc., etc. And yeah, in '97, as a young lower league level coach, I decided that this is a passion that I wanted to follow, and made a definitive decision then that rugby coaching was something that I wanted to do on a full-time basis.
Okay, so you decided you were going to take this thing seriously. So I'm interested in what strategy you set for yourself in terms of becoming a professional coach.
Yeah, Dale, I think once I realized way back in 1997 that this was a passion and something that I really wanted to pursue, I did have a strategy. I think it was important to have one. To say that it was a slow process would probably be an understatement. I don't necessarily think that I had a strategy specifically to become a professional coach, but it was very definitely the ultimate goal was to be able to coach professionally. The strategy really was around being able to better myself, to be able to equip myself with the very best tools that were available. So that would mean trying to learn as quickly as I can about the nuances of coaching, specifically in rugby, applying to go into every rugby coaching course that was available, which I was able to do back in '97, and then be able to equip myself by spending time with people who I knew or I got to know who were very good in coaching. One of those individuals in my life was Brendan Venter, and he had a significant role to play in my life because he was still playing for South Africa. He was still a professional rugby player, but he was very much a thinking type of player and was already starting his path on coaching. So from that point of view, we shared strategies, we shared ideas, and from my point of view, the strategy was to basically equip myself as best I could, so that should the opportunity arise for me to get a break and get a job in a professional environment, that I at least had the necessary tools. And 3 years later, that opportunity did arise.
So Gary, from 1997 through till 2008, when you were appointed the Springbok assistant coach, you've obviously had a lot of trials and tribulations and twists and turns in the path that you followed as a professional coach. How have you had to adapt your strategy?
I think quite radically. I think professional sport and particularly professional rugby is like a new business in the world. It's almost a new multinational corporate that's just started out and is only 10 years old, so it's still in its infancy. Certainly if you compare it to other professional sports like American football or even football itself in the United Kingdom, professional rugby is still a very young organisation. And like in business, it's quite a tough world, and one of the reasons why I consistently need to be changing strategies, you need to be trying to stay a step ahead of the game on a day-to-day basis, and also from a rather larger point of view, from a season-to-season basis. It does seem that by and large you pretty much are judged on your last season or in fact on your last performance, and therefore it's essential that you are able to build an environment, a working environment with your bosses, your subordinates, your colleagues, where the whole time you're always trying to stay a step ahead of the game of the opposition. In the case of the Springboks at the moment, the Springbok rugby team obviously are a team that have enjoyed a lot of success, particularly in 2009, and for a period of time became #1 in the world. And when you're working in an environment like that with the #1 team in the world, you do realize that every opponent objective that weekend is to beat the champions, and so there's no other cauldron in the world that you put in business or in sport where I believe that you need to consistently be reevaluating your strategies and ensuring that that you have a clear and precise plan that's going to help you continually grow and the organization that you're involved in continually grow.
Anything you do differently?
I think to answer that question, we need to almost take a step further back. I think we speak a lot about learning from one's mistakes. I think the simple answer is certainly there are things I would do differently. I think the important aspect really is to understand that I believe as a coach, specifically a rugby coach, you're never too old to learn. And I believe as long as you are one's always putting themselves on a path that you're consistently learning, I believe then as you do make a mistake along the way, I think you can stumble on some really valuable lessons. And I think it's when you do stumble on those lessons that you then, if I were to reflect back, sure, certainly I would have done things differently. Slightly different though to be able to say that than it is to say that strategically I would have possibly done something different, because at the time I wouldn't have known unless I'd erred or I'd made a mistake. But I think if you do think back at it by and large, and you have a look back at whether it's planning for an entire season or recruitment of players or the way you've dealt with a conflict situation, or whatever category you want to discuss, I think almost all the time I could probably look back and say I feel I may or may not have been able to do that better, and a lot of the time I think the answer may have been I would be able to do things a little bit better. But again, it's part and parcel of the process, and something that's quite difficult in rugby at the moment. If you can form a relationship with an employee, and so whoever that organisation is that you're working for, and they realise that you're growing in the job on a day-to-day basis, then I think you can get yourself into a situation where, by and large, you've made enough mistakes, and you're well on the way on the road to having a very successful organisation for what is key for a very considerable length of time.